I think everybody here knows our speaker today. I did try to pay off some Rotarians to tell us some salacious details about David's life that we don't know, but I couldn't find any takers. So the title of the presentation today is An Introduction to Bitcoin and the Blockchain. And a little bit about David, in case you didn't know, is David Mancuso is the co-founder of Troon Technologies, a custom software solutions agency, now specializing in blockchain development. Prior to Troon Technologies, David worked for Lifespan, the Fort Hamilton Healthcare Corporation, and spent the first 10 years of his career as executive director of Westover Retirement Community. Most recently, David has helped lead the development of Troon's latest product called Reconcile, spelled Reconcile, a mobile pharmacist-led telehealth application. David volunteers in leadership roles on many not-for-profit boards, including Primary Health Solutions. Mark, applause. Oh. David has a master's of gerontological studies from Miami University, is a licensed nursing home administrator, and is past president of the Rotary Club of Hamilton. Take it away, David.
Thank you, Jeff. I sound like a hell of a guy. Thank you so much. Yeah, I appreciate it. Actually, really, Jeff, thank you for giving me this space today. I know there's a lot of competition for opportunities to speak to this group, so thank you, Jeff, for giving it to me. So yeah, as Jeff mentioned, I've been dying to talk about this topic. It's a real interest of mine. I spent a lot of my own time kind of researching Bitcoin, but the blockchain in particular. And so I wanted this opportunity to kind of come here and talk to you about it. So this is actually right here. It's Rotarian to Rotarian. I'm a Rotarian. I'm speaking to you. This peer-to-peer concept, this is something that we're going to hear a lot today. We talk about that a lot as it relates to Bitcoin and any type of peer-to-peer currency, but this was actually an attempt to be funny when I wrote Rotarian to Rotarian. So I'm hoping, I don't know that I'm going to do much better than that today. And so keep your expectations low. Maybe in 15, 20 minutes that might actually be funny. But yeah. So here's what I want to talk about today. Decentralized is another term you're going to hear a lot. So here's today's decentralized agenda. First, we're going to talk about Bitcoin, the history. What is the value of Bitcoin? Who accepts Bitcoin? I don't know that I'll get to other cryptocurrencies in this presentation today, but I was hoping to. And then most importantly, what is the blockchain, the money that's involved in the blockchain, a little bit about blockchain mining. And then I'd like to talk to you just for a minute about what I do now, because I don't know that a lot of you know that. And so I'll show you what my company is doing as it relates to cryptocurrencies and the blockchain. So I had a little video. I might come back to that. Yeah, I might come back to that. So let's just start with this. Let's start with what is Bitcoin. I know you're hearing about it. I mean, I kind of polled you a couple weeks ago, and if you don't mind, I'll do it again. Who's heard of it? Great. Who heard of it 6 months ago? Okay, great. So yeah, that's great. And the question that I was saying a few times, I asked who owns Bitcoin, and everybody just laughed at me the last time I asked that question. But anybody want to admit that they got some Bitcoin in their portfolio? So again, it's a decentralized digital currency. And so even though people refer to it as a coin, it's really not. It's a digital currency. It's not backed by any government or organization. It allows for instantaneous peer-to-peer transactions. So you could be shipping Bitcoin worldwide, and that transaction happens like that. And as you know, with some of the centralized organizations that we have set up as it relates to our monetary system, that doesn't always happen. I mean, you can bring a check into your bank and it's not necessarily going to be available in your account instantaneously, but that is something that Bitcoin offers. There's no need for a trusted third party, so it does eliminate the need for banks, credit card companies, and companies like PayPal. And what you do a lot of times with Bitcoin is you can exchange Bitcoin for some of the other many cryptocurrencies that are out there. There's about 1,200 of them that are out there. You can buy some of those other cryptocurrencies with Bitcoin, but you can also buy products and services. And I got a slide in a few slides from now that are going to talk about what are some of the other products and services, and who are some of the vendors that currently take Bitcoin as an exchange as opposed to just USD. And then finally, the system is run, and this is the most interesting part, and this is where I get into the blockchain a little bit, but the system is run by a decentralized network of computers around the world, and it tracks the transactions of Bitcoin. And that's really, again, where we start talking about the blockchain. That's probably the most interesting part of Bitcoin. But let me tell you about the quick history of Bitcoin, even though this looks like a lot of stuff. It was introduced in 2008. Nobody had heard of it. It was released 2 weeks. It was a white paper that was sent out to kind of explain Bitcoin and what it was all about. And it actually came out 2 weeks after the collapse of Lehman Brothers, which that timing is not coincidental. I think, you know, kind of the public was frustrated with what was happening in 2008, and the fact that it got launched at that time is very interesting. The creator was a programmer, a computer developer named Satoshi Nakamoto, and what is interesting is we don't know who this is. He released this white paper. He set this incredible thing called Bitcoin and the blockchain out there. And nobody's been able to identify this guy. Here's a picture on Time magazine. And more interestingly, so he introduced this in 2008, he got it set up, and he disappeared from the project in 2010. So when we talk about Bitcoin, it's really being run on its own. It's the people that use Bitcoin and the computers that manage the system that actually run it. There is no middleman, there is no third person, there's no third party. One of the pieces that I think appeal to people that put their money into Bitcoin, and you'll see there's a lot of them, there's a cap, and it's 21 million. There will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin available for distribution. And right now, I think probably about 15 or 16 are out there, and they're still being what's called mined. They get mined, like computer mining. I'll talk about that in a minute. But there's a cap on it, and I think that's appealing. So as opposed to, say, the Federal Reserve or someone who could actually print money, you can't print more Bitcoin. You've got a capped number. You got 21 million of them available. Now, you can split up Bitcoin. Few people own Bitcoins because they're so expensive right now, but you can own a portion of a Bitcoin. So even though there's only 21 million, you can split that up, but at least there's a defined number of them. And as I said, the system is maintained by a network of independent computers, so it's all decentralized. These mining computers perform the functions that maintain the Bitcoins. And I've mentioned it a couple of times, but these miners are really the most important part of the Bitcoin infrastructure. So I'll get into that a little bit more in a second. So here's an important question. So because you're all seeing, I think one of the reasons why everybody's aware of Bitcoin or talking about Bitcoin is how much it has grown in the past 2 years, but more importantly, just in the last 6 months. And so the question is, who decides what Bitcoin is worth? Well, it's actually the users. It's the people that own Bitcoin and sell Bitcoin and want to buy Bitcoin. So it operates very similar to any other market. It's, just like, if the demand for gold, often when there's, economic crisis, people turn to gold or silver and the prices skyrocket. We've seen that in the last few years. And that's really how it works. I mean, it works very similar to that. And it's done on bidding on exchanges, just like you see in the stock market. So this is an interesting slide. This is kind of the evolution of Bitcoin and how it's gone from, this was released in 2008. So the first Bitcoin was mined in January of 2009, and it wasn't worth anything. So someone had a Bitcoin on their computer and it had zero value to it. But a year and a month later, it was worth just less than a penny. I always like this stat right here. In May of 2010, so not long after, it had rose to just under a penny. And so a bunch of guys who were living in their mom's basement felt they were hungry one night. They'd mined 10,000 Bitcoins, and so they ordered the first pizza. And that was actually the first transaction that had ever taken place. So they had 10,000 Bitcoins, and they bought a $25 pizza. Now, the current value of Bitcoin about an hour ago was $8,200. So these poor boys who spent $25 on a pizza, I can promise you are very upset about it today, because that'd be worth $82 million, those 10,000 Bitcoin. In April, Bitcoin hit $1, which was kind of a big deal. And then you see this quick growth here from April to June of 2011. It went from $1 to $10. And that's what we have come to know Bitcoin for, which is this heavy fluctuation. In February of 2013, so a little bit of time passed, February 2013, you start to see the venture capitalists come into play, and they start dumping money into this. And now we start seeing things kick up. Because again, here, just not long after, so we got February 2013, March 2013, it hit $75, and that's when Silicon Valley got involved. And so now you got all these tech guys sitting around in their coffee shops, and they're talking about what is Bitcoin and how can we be involved, because this thing is growing like crazy. Some of you may be familiar with the Winklevoss twins. If you've seen that movie about Facebook, these are the guys that actually came up with the concept, and they are the ones that are credited with the whole idea of creating Facebook, and they have their idea taken, and we all know how that turned out. But these guys are actually very independently wealthy on their own, and they dumped some money into this, and they started getting involved, and that created a much higher exposure to Bitcoin. So I think that really helped. In January, it rose to January 2014. It rose to 300. I'd like to call the group that got involved at this point, it's the bank and government haters, and that's where people started going, oh my gosh, we've got some alternative to the dollar. We got some alternative to the way we're doing things today, and they jumped in, and that's where you really started seeing these prices start to go. So if you just look at year to year, January, you see I went from 3 to 6 to 8. Now this is the one that, again, the reason why we're all talking about this today is because just this past year, in a year, it went from $800 to $19,000 on December the 5th of this past year. $19,000, one Bitcoin. So I printed this off last night. I just took that. I don't know if you can see it very well, but so I was saying $19,000. This is, again, fluctuation. This is how the Bitcoin market operates. It fluctuated from $19,000. Last night it was $8,170. So you can see February 8th last year. So today's date last year, a Bitcoin was worth, you can't see it in that corner, but it says $952. And so there we are on December 5th of just this past year, it was worth $19,206. Now again, now we've gone back down here, it's worth $8,170, but wow, that's something else if you had a few of these Bitcoins laying around. So I want to talk about companies that accept this, because I think a lot of us think, well, nobody's taking this, like what can you do with a Bitcoin? Well, these are companies that we all know. You can buy your stuff on Amazon with Bitcoin. They started accepting that in 2016. Expedia, Microsoft, PayPal, Uber, you can book your cab, your ride with Bitcoin. So these are some well-known companies that have said, yeah, this thing's legit, and we accept it. What's my time? I wanted to talk about some other cryptocurrencies because Bitcoin is considered a cryptocurrency. I'm actually not going to. I'm just running a little tight on time. But if you ever want to get together for a coffee, I'm happy to talk about some of the other currencies that are out there, because they're very, very interesting, because they're all doing what's called an ICO, which is an initial coin offering. And this is the way these companies are raising money to build out their businesses. So instead of an IPO, an initial public offering, they're doing what's called an ICO, which is a coin offering. So any one of us can go out there and say, I am interested in this company, I'm going to buy some coins, and they use that money to build out their system and what they're trying to build. And according to Bloomberg, over $4 billion was raised in 2017 for these ICOs. So people were putting money into this. So I got a disclaimer up here. So what do I look for in a cryptocurrency before I would invest in one? This is the disclaimer that my attorney asked me to say before I talk about cryptocurrencies, and that is that I don't know what I'm talking about. I do this research on my own. I'm an amateur at this. I don't have any certifications. Don't take my advice. You're crazy if you do. But these are, when I'm looking for cryptocurrencies, these are some of the things that I look for. I look for supply, the volume, like is it getting traded? Is it trending up? Who's on the team? But most importantly, what I look for is this last one. Does it solve a technology problem that is worth solving? And not everybody can answer that question. I just happen to be linked up with some smart tech guys, and so they can tell me if this is a good problem to be solving. But anyways, it's a very interesting thing. Like I said, I'm glossing over it today. I'd love to talk to you about it if you ever feel, but don't ever take my advice, because that would be foolish. Here's what I want to get into too. It's Bitcoin and the blockchain. So I've mentioned it already. Here's the blockchain logo. I've mentioned it already. Bitcoin it runs along the blockchain. That's the engine that powers Bitcoin. So as I've already mentioned, Bitcoin is a unique digital token, and it can be exchanged but not duplicated. And I think people get that confused. They think, well, I own this Bitcoin, can't somebody just copy it? No, it cannot be copied. It is impossible to copy. It's shared by peer-to-peer technology, again, no third party, and it's on a distributed public ledger. So each and every transaction that happens with Bitcoin, so I sell you a Bitcoin, that transaction is logged on the blockchain and it is sealed permanently forever. And that's where the blockchain technology is so ingenious. And so what I've got down here at the bottom, blockchain technology is beginning to replace processing central authorities, and that you're going to see that so much more. That is probably the piece that if you take anything away, just recognize that you are going to see a lot more of blockchain, because we are going to be moving away from these centralized authorities, because there's fear of hacking, there's fear of control, there's a lot of time that gets spent on these central authorities, and I think you're going to see a lot more of this decentralization that happens, and that's because of blockchain technology. So here's kind of how this thing works. This is what we call a decentralized ledger. So anytime anybody's trying to describe Bitcoin, they always use Alice and they use Bob for whatever reason, but Alice is trying to sell Bob a Bitcoin. And so the way this thing works is Alice is a seller, Bob is the buyer of this Bitcoin. And so what happens is Bob makes a request to buy that Bitcoin from Alice because he knows he's got it for sale, and it kind of goes into this system, and this is kind of the network of the blockchain, and it goes into this network, and so all these computers are scampering around trying to figure out if this is a legit transaction. And so they're trying to confirm that Alice has a Bitcoin, they're trying to confirm that Bob has the money to pay Alice for the Bitcoin, and then when the transaction happens, they want to make sure that it happened, and so they confirm that the transaction happened. So whatever computer does that the quickest actually gets paid in Bitcoin. That's how Bitcoin is released into the system. That it's mined out, and the mining is this completing the transaction. It's approving that this transaction has taken place. And then what happens is all these other computers that are out there that were racing, they confirm that that transaction happened, or that was actually what this computer figured out. So here's just another way to look at it. So, let's just look at, we got all these people here, and so just look at it this way. This guy is the one that said, yep, he sent the money. And so that's confirming that transaction happened. And then the way it gets sealed in the blockchain, here's just the extension of it. So you can't see that, but it says, yep, he sent the money. And then these computers all simultaneously are saying, I agree with that last guy. And that's when it gets sealed into the blockchain. And that's when everybody knows that transaction took place. And you're able to go back and verify that transaction took place. And it is there forever, and it cannot be changed. So the blockchain is a public ledger. It's maintained by computer miners. I've mentioned that a few times, but this is an important statement right here. The blockchain is to Bitcoin what the internet is to email. The first time any one of us received an email, got an email, back before there was email, we're like, wow, this is what a great, this is a great idea, because now we don't have to send letters, and what a great way to correspond with people. But that was the most ingenious part of that invention. Email was, we use email like crazy, but that wasn't the smartest part of that invention. It was the internet that drove it, and that's what I'm talking about with the blockchain. Bitcoin's cool, Bitcoin's fun, people trade in Bitcoin, they can do stuff with Bitcoin, but it's the concept behind it that is the real winner, and that's where the future is going to be. Here's a block of the blockchain. You can't see too much, it's just kind of you can see how many transactions took place. Each one of these are a block. So you can't get a whole lot out of there, but that's how these blocks are sealed. But this is in essence what it is. It's really, if you look at what a bank ledger is, that's really what the Bitcoin ledger is. So on August the 20th, this account paid this account $100. That's exactly what Bitcoin is doing. So, August 17th, this Bitcoin address paid this Bitcoin address 0.5 of a Bitcoin. That's all it's doing. That's all the blockchain is doing. It's just recognizing those transactions. So do venture capitalists like this? I mentioned this before. Are they into this? I don't have a source for this. I just heard a guy a couple months ago that mentioned this, but in 2017, 70% of VC money went into blockchain development. That's got my attention. I'm interested in that. Here's where a lot of people stand with understanding the blockchain. I think I don't read a lot of comics, but this is Dilbert. And so his boss comes in and says, hey, I think we should build a blockchain. And again, most people are just not sure of what the blockchain is. And so Dilbert says, does he understand what he said, or is it just something that he saw in a trade magazine? And so Dilbert tests him and he says, what color do you want the blockchain? And he says, I think mauve would have the most RAM. I mean, it makes no sense, but that's kind of where a lot of people are. They've heard about the blockchain, they know it's cool, they know it's coming, they're not sure what it is, they just want in. And so we're seeing a lot of that. So I want to talk about the mining, because I think that is an important piece of this. That's, again, these computers that are working together and not only confirming the blockchain, but they're generating coins. They're generating Bitcoins as they go, and they're earning Bitcoins for playing a role in keeping the system together. Here's a sample of one of these machines that mine Bitcoin and some of the other coins. Quickly, I'll talk about my company, because I want to tell you what we're doing right now. Here are some of the services that my company does. We build websites. We do a lot of custom development, a lot of custom applications. We do developer on demand, so you can rent one of our developers if you're building something. And we do hosting and maintenance. But we are and if I could mention, my company started off in 2012, and we started off with me and two of my partners. And this is our company today. So if you don't mind me bragging for a minute, this is our group right now. And as you can tell, I'm not even on the first row anymore. I'm on the second row. But fortunately, my name is on all the right documents, so it's okay. I could fall on any of the rows. But this is our group now, and this is what I do full time. I work for Troon Technologies. And yeah, I'm really enjoying that. But here are some of the things that we're involved with. And this is my last slide, I think. We invest in cryptocurrencies, both personal and with our business, because we believe in it. We're in that space, and we like it. We are starting to do a lot of this. People are going crazy over this blockchain development, and those are big companies. These are banks. These are large accounting firms. They want in on this. They know it's big, but they don't know how to get there, and that's where our team comes in, some of the development that we're doing. Also, I've got my friend and new business partner, Chris Cooper, here today. Troon Technologies and his company, Cooper Computers, we started doing, we are building a crypto mining farm. And so when I go back here and I show you one of these, we're buying a bunch of these pieces of equipment. Actually, here's a good shot of it. And we are setting these up, and we are actually doing mining. We're contributing to the blockchain. We're actually doing work. And so in exchange for that work, we're earning some of these coins. We're earning Bitcoin. We're earning some of these other cryptocurrencies. And so our business model is actually, we buy the equipment, we are mining the stuff, but we are actually selling half of the equipment that we buy. And that's kind of our business model. So we open that up to others that want to be involved in crypto mining, and they come in and they can buy some of this, and then these pieces of equipment right here are mining for them. So they might buy a couple of these, and that's mining for them, and we maintain it. So that's kind of the service that Chris and I are now involved with. And then the last thing that we're doing is my company is planning to launch what we call an ICO, an initial coin offering. I mentioned that before. We're planning to launch that in blockchain security. This is becoming a really big thing. And some of my guys here are real experts when it comes to security. So we are going to launch a blockchain security ICO probably within the next 6 months. Okay. I got it in. So, sorry, Jason. Right, sorry about that. Yeah, I mean, I know better than to go up tight to the time, but sorry, I had a lot to cover. So, yeah, I know. I thought surely he knows. Yeah. I can't. Sure, happy. Jeff. Yeah. Hi.
Why 21 billion Bitcoins?
Yeah, where did they come up with that number? Yeah, because every cryptocurrency has a different number. 21 million was just the one that he just came up with that number, and I think he felt like that was a controllable number. It sounds like a lot, but it's really not. When you think about how many dollar bills are out there, how many dollar bills get printed on a year-to-year basis. There are so many. And it was just a controllable number that he felt would be a good start. Now, there are cryptocurrencies out there with 500 million. Coins, and so that's one of the things that I look for. How much market cap is out there? But I don't know if that answers your question, but I hope it does. Yes, yeah. So when you do an ICO, so when we do our ICO, we're gonna have to say how many coins we're putting out there, because your investors want to know how thin is this going to be spread. Thank you. Thanks again. Sorry. Oh, sure. Hi, Bill.
Did I not read where there was a fraud connected with the Bitcoin operation recently?
Yeah, well, it's probably been a while, but that's really what Bitcoin was known for in its early years, was that because there weren't a lot of Amazons that were accepting Bitcoin back in 2010, 2011, a lot of some of these underground businesses popped up, and they would exchange Bitcoin because there was no way to track person to person. So you're reduced to like a hash, and so there weren't really, you couldn't really track who was buying stuff. So Bitcoin had kind of a bad name for a couple of years because people were using it to buy guns and drugs and so on online. And a lot of people, not a lot of people, but a few people went to jail over that. And fortunately, they were caught. I mean, it was criminal activity, and they were using Bitcoin to exchange these illegal goods. But yeah, I mean, recently it's very much above board and pretty quality product. So thanks again. I'm sorry about taking all that time. Yeah, you bet. Thank you.
Nice job.
Yeah, thank you. Look at pens.
Yeah, you want one?
Yeah.
Here you go. Yeah. Got his pen. Is that your first pen?
Yeah, it is.
Wow, okay. Very good. Thanks, David. Very interesting stuff.